All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Professional Brotherhood podcast. Hello there, Kara. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Normally we go into this whole conversation about how it's been a while since we recorded. We're just going to skip all that bullshit tonight because it is what it is. It has been a while and it might be a while till the next one too, but we're going for quality over quantity at this stage of the game, right?
I love that for us.
All right, perfect. So also joining us, I have a local brother of mine, Chris Tanis. Chris, what is up?
Hey, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing good, doing good. So Chris is joining us just here in the beginning this evening because he's got to go off and do his due diligence and get to the firehouse for drill this evening. And I don't want to hold him up from that. But today is what today is Monday. It's Cyber Monday, right? What the hell is the date? The 29th, right? Today's the 29th. It's Monday.
Yeah.
We're recording this. This will probably post on Wednesday. Is that the first day of December? Wednesday?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, December 1. So this will probably be posting December 1. If you've been paying attention to the Instagram feeds, to the gram, Chris has a business where he makes custom disc golf discs. Do I have that right? Disc golf
Yes,
discs.
you do.
All right.
Yeah,
If you're
yeah,
watching
yep.
this on YouTube, you'll see the array of beautiful discs behind him. All right. If you're catching this on the podcast, well, go check out the YouTube. But Chris made a custom Professional Brotherhood disc. I don't know a goddamn thing about disc golf. I'm going to be honest with you. I just know that his discs are pretty cool. I know that I've been camping over the years and I've seen these weird little basket things like sporadically spread out in the woods. I don't know. I thought it was some weird Blair Witch Project shit. I don't know, but whatever. Our younger listeners, if you don't know what Blair Witch Project is, go watch it. All right. So Chris, tell us a little bit about your business and what you got going on.
All right. Yeah. So I've been a volunteer in Rossville for about 4 years now. But I've been playing disc golf for probably almost 30 years now. I got a disc when I was younger. I think my grandpa was just trying to give me something to do to keep him off his back. And, it's just kind of been something I did for my whole life, kind of in the background. And last year when the pandemic hit, I had always kind of had an artistic background through high school and in college. And I just kind of put the two together, really. I was looking for something to do, like I think a lot of people were during the pandemic. And really one thing led to another. A few people saw my stuff and then they wanted it. And that just kind of, snowballed into what it is now. And really the sport in general has blown up over the past 2 years, and the pandemic really being kind of one of those reasons, because it was one of the only things you could get out and do and socially distance. And with it being something that really has such a wide entry, anybody any age can get out there and play. I think also kind of boosted the sport. But yeah, that's really it. I combined everything and here we are with Danny Mac Dies a year and a half later.
That's pretty cool. So, I like, we have a few other firefighter owned companies that we like to support and throw some codes out there when we can. And Kara's got her fitness business that we obviously get behind. Because she is the co-host and all, so, and she's a good trainer too. She knows what she's doing. So, there's that goes along with it. But,
Right.
you offered to make me up this disc. I thought it was pretty cool. I'm going to fling that thing around the yard a little bit, see what happens. We keep the dogs away from it though. But,
I'll have to take you out to play. And you joined the dark side in the CrossFit community recently. So we're gonna have to play disc golf and then get a workout in.
Yeah. You're right about that. Yeah. I've been doing pretty good with my 5:15 workout schedule. So
all right.
It's still not 4:30 a.m. like some other overachiever that might be on this call, but
Thank you.
it's close enough. Right, Kara?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you know what? It's 0 dark 30 at 5:15 or 4:30, so you might as well just get up and do it.
Yeah,
Right about
yeah,
that,
exactly. Yeah. So Chris, tell everybody where they before we do that, you recently launched a YouTube channel.
I did, yeah, and that's the same name, the same name, Daddy Mac Guys on YouTube, and that was just kind of uh, just an extra branch. I'm going to be doing tutorials. I'm actually going to be releasing my own die kit here soon. So, if anybody's interested in or a disc golfer interested in doing their own dies on their disc, I'll sell the whole kit, and then I'll have tutorials on YouTube as well.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's a pretty funny guy too. So his YouTube channel, his
They're
YouTube
a lot-
channel is worth checking out.
They're a lot of fun to make, and especially when you got like 50 takes. I'm much funnier when I have 50 different takes to edit from. But
So,
yeah, go ahead.
Before you throw all your handles out there, because I want you to do that before you go. I'm on your Instagram right now, and I just want everybody to know that they're not in the right place unless they get there and it says dude, his dudeness, duder, and El Duderino. All right. If
Not
you're
into
not
the
at the
whole
dude, the
brevity
dudeness, the
thing.
duder, and
Yeah.
the El Duderino, you are not in the right spot. All right. So why don't you tell everybody where they can find you if they're looking for a disc and if they're into disc golf.
Yeah, Daddy Mac Dies on Instagram, as well as on Facebook, and daddymacdies.com, as far as my disc sales and the dying stuff goes, and the push will be this year to go to actually more of an online retail store for the area. So
Awesome.
So yeah, and
Awesome.
then if anybody's, if anybody out there listening is a disc golfer, I'm going to be putting the code on tomorrow, so it'll be active by the time you hear this. But Brotherhood 20, and that'll get you 20% off anything on the store.
Awesome. All right, man.
Super
Thanks,
cool.
thanks, Chris. We appreciate you coming on. Everybody, go check out Daddy Mac Dies, and we'll make some videos throwing that disc around once I get my hands on it. I got to make the long journey up to the other side of the county first, but well,
we could go to Warwick. Warwick's not too far from you.
Yeah, no.
That's a little disc golf mecca right over there. But
Yeah.
all right,
man. Stay
Hey, I
safe. Have fun
appreciate
at
it.
the firehouse, and tell the brothers we said hello.
I sure will. Have a good night, guys.
All right, you
Thanks,
too.
stay
Later.
safe.
All right, Kara. So we're
Stand
gonna
by.
dive. So it's funny, right? I was I actually shared a post.
Post?
I actually shared a post. Where are you going? Oh, there
I'm
you
right
are.
here.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to adjust.
That's all right. So I shared a post the other day. It wasn't my post. I stumble across some stuff every now and again that just kind of resonates with me. And I shared, this was from, well, we've shared a couple good ones the last few days. All right. So I shared, this one was from Lines and Ladders Facebook page. And it was actually from November of 2015. So this is an older post.
The older one, oldie but a goodie.
Yeah, oldie but a goodie. And it was a little caricature of a firefighter, and it said, I have no certifications, but because people like me, I am a fire officer. And there was there was a post that went along with it about it being election time, and that time of year, again, volunteer fire departments across the country. And it kind of, and from there it went into training requirements and etc. All right. So then I was looking back at our past episodes, and lo and behold, right around this time last year,
oddly enough,
we actually talked about elections in the volunteer fire service.
Right.
So I thought it might be, here we are a year later, it might be a good time to revisit that topic. And On top of that, what else did I find? I shared, yes, I shared something from Spot the Vol Chief. Okay. Which again kind of plays along with all of this, professionalism and elections and leadership and qualifications. But this was of a chief somewhere. I don't know where. Okay. I can only assume by the white coat and the radio in hand, combined with the lovely skinny jeans and the open toe sandals.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are a year later, and we're going to have the same conversation again.
Right. Right.
But
hopefully we're reaching a wider audience this time.
I think we are.
Right.
Yeah, we're always reaching a wider audience.
Right. So that's why we got to talk about it again.
Right.
'cause
Right.
we're reaching a wider audience.
Exactly. So let's dive in, shall we?
Let's dive. Let's take the deep dive.
Let's take a deep dive.
Right.
Deep dive. So where do we start? Where do you want to start with firehouse elections? Right, because it is that time of year. Everybody is preparing, right? If how whatever the process is in your station, whether you have to, whether there's a committee, right, that goes out and finds candidates, or there's the sign up sheet on the board in the firehouse somewhere where you get, maybe Kara is running, but then you get Mickey Mouse underneath her, or
Right.
Donald Duck, or whomever, right? But whatever the process is, right, that process is happening now, right? Because we're getting, well, for a lot of places, district
for many
elections,
places,
for many
yeah,
places,
yeah.
December will be the time. So go ahead. Where do we start?
Well, the first cartoon kind of lays it out about, do you pick the buddy,
Right.
the nice guy, right? Or do you pick the person with the training and expertise and the skill level? And I think that's definitely a hot button issue.
Sure.
Or if it's not a hot button issue, it's going to become one.
Should be.
Right. If you're not talking about that, when you're in these preliminary discussions or the preliminary talks about who your officers are going to be, that should be something that your committee or the folks that are starting to make those recommendations and decisions, that should be something that you're talking about, right?
Right.
And I think that it's not a cut and dry issue, first of all, right? Like, we want to make sure people understand
Correct.
that it's not something where you're going to say, don't do this or only do this. But discussions need to be had. There's a lot of good reasons to pick somebody that is a nice person and a kind person, because you don't want to necessarily have that person. It's particularly in the volunteer service. You don't want to have a person who is belligerent and obstinate and difficult to get along with, just as a matter of course in a leadership position, because that presents a whole separate set of challenges outside of just their ability to lead.
Right.
So, that's an issue, right? But
Absolutely.
if their only qualification or their only redeeming quality as a leader is that they're kind, that's not a good reason to put them in a leadership position.
True.
Because you are likely setting them up for failure if you're basing their likelihood of success on their ability to be kind.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And that's probably unfair to do to them.
True. But some people seem to make it through an entire career of leadership in the volunteer fire service just by being kind.
No doubt.
Or not even being kind, just by not making any waves or creating any enemies.
Right.
Right. And I don't know how I don't know how you can be a leader in the fire service in an organization and go through a whatever, we'll say a 12-year career, right? I don't know what the average is from, I guess it depends on how many positions you have, but
Right.
we'll say from lieutenant up till the time you're done as chief. So let's say the average is 12 to 15 years. I don't know, or 10 to 12 years, whatever it may be. I'm sure it's shorter in some places, longer in other places, because some have more positions, some don't. But how do you go through that amount of years and never, ever upset anybody or just maintain being everybody's friend?
Because you make your career out of being nice.
Okay.
No, really. That's
No,
what
you're
they
right.
do. They make their career out of being nice, and they don't make their career out of leading. And there's a very marked difference between being a leader and being a nice person.
Right.
It's not the same thing. And you can be a leader and operate in the realm of kindness, but you are not going to be exempt from pissing people off. So
True.
you have to make a conscious choice and accept that not everyone is going to like you, period. And
Right.
and that's true in life. Like, you can be the kindest person ever. I mean, just because, you can't expect a lion to like you, to not eat you just because you're a vegetarian. That's just not the way it works.
Right.
In life, people are gonna not like you just because that's just who they are as people or whatever. I mean, so in a leadership position, your job is not to carry the title of lieutenant or carry the title of captain or carry the title of chief. That's not your job. As your job isn't to carry a title.
Right.
Your job
Right.
is to carry out tasks in a leadership role. In order to carry out those tasks, sometimes you are going to have to make decisions that are not going to please people.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that is a burden that you have to be willing to carry. Sometimes you're going to have to make decisions that are catastrophic in their result, because
Sure.
sometimes you're going to make the wrong decisions.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And nice people will find that very difficult to do unless their goal is to just be nice. And then they will never probably make a decision. They will leave
True.
the decision making to others
True.
on their team.
So they don't upset the apple cart or create any waves or anything like
Right.
that. Yeah.
Right.
All right. So let's
Right.
rewind. Let's go back to so I've said this for a long time. I probably heard it from somebody else, right? I mean, I guess, some things you create on your own and you kind of forget that you maybe created them. Other things you hear from somebody, you just don't remember who the hell you heard them
Right.
from, but whatever. So I like to preface by saying I might have heard this from somebody else,
Right.
but I often say, and I've said it a few times on here, and I know I say it lots of times when I'm teaching, that when we typically in the volunteer fire service, when we elect whatever our lowest ranking officer is, okay, our lieutenant per se, that we are more than likely electing our future chief.
Correct.
That's typically how it works. There are not a lot of places out there that make a habit of removing bad officers.
Right.
Right. For many reasons, right? And look, maybe it's no fault of their own. I don't know, but I've heard, well, we don't have, nobody's banging down the door to be an officer, so we got to kind of take what we can get. I've heard that. I've heard, well, we let them advance for too long. So once we've let them advance all the way up to assistant chief, and now it's their turn to become the chief of the department, that's not the time to bounce them. We should have bounced them before.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, again, if we're being nice, yeah, probably. So we look at this, we look at the whole friendship game and why people choose person A over person B. Okay. And typically it comes down to clicks, right? It comes down to your circle of friends. It comes down with the people that you relate to at the firehouse, whatever the hell it may be, right? But I want to go back into this post because I thought there was some interesting stuff in here, some interesting outlook, all right, on this topic. It got quite a few comments on Instagram. I don't remember what it got on Facebook, but let me just read some of these and it'll probably open some discussion a little bit more. So somebody posted, at my department you have to have officer 1 and officer 2 to be an officer. Okay, so we've got an education component there. That's okay. Somebody said the more rural you get, the worse it gets. But how do you promote change when retention is low and the majority of volunteers are exactly that, volunteers? Not an excuse, but a valid point, right?
Right.
When your roster is low and small and you don't have a lot of people. So I get it. All right. Somebody else said, again, you have to take officer classes. I think all volunteer fire departments should be required to take a promotional exam. If career departments do it, why doesn't the volunteer service? I actually replied back to that one and I said, so do you feel that a test is the missing factor in determining what a good officer is or not?
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah. I don't believe in that. Like even in the career service, I get it. I understand that's how it's done. Like a lot of it falls upon the test, but I think probably if we polled a bunch of our, career listeners and said, hey, do you know somebody that ended up in an officer position because they were a phenomenal test taker, but a shitty officer? And I'm sure you would get lots of, I work with one every week,
Right.
So, I don't feel that the written test is the end all be all answer either.
Particularly in our state,
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Our civil service tests in particular.
Let's see. What else did I get here? I got, about certs, not having certs until the volunteer fire service adapts some type of knowledge-based system. The same nonsense will continue. Even when people get hurt or worse, there are no protections in place to block accountability. So that's a good point, right? Some sort of a knowledge-based system. That's, that could be a combination of a couple of things, right? A knowledge-based system. So again, we have listeners all over the place, right? We hear from people all over the country, all over the world sometimes. So I know everybody that's listening to this is a little bit different, right? Here in New York, we have this thing called home rule, right? Yeah. So what home rule means is, and people love to bring this up. So New York State does have a document out there that's called best practices, right? Best practices for exterior firefighter, interior firefighter, lower line officers, chief officers, engineers, right? And basically what it is it's a guideline document that says, here's what we would recommend for this position. And it's, courses and years of service and whatever. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. It's a pretty good document. All right. But it's a guideline. It's a recommendation. Because we're a home rule state, the state cannot say, hey, this is the way it's going to be across the board. It's up to the individual fire districts or municipalities or authorities having jurisdiction to put in their own requirements for each position or job title, right? So that's part of the problem here in New York, right? It's kind of like the facial hair thing, right? We could talk to her blue in the face about the facial hair thing, right? My department enforces it. My immediate mutual aid department enforces it. Pretty much everybody else around us does not enforce it.
Right.
Same thing, right? So Yeah. So
Right.
that's the groundwork, right? Of where
Right.
we can start with this whole thing.
Right. It gets harder. It's some of the smaller rural departments. It gets a little harder for them to enforce it during hunting season. Everybody gets buck fever.
Right.
And then, but yes.
And I get it. That's okay. But
I don't think it's okay. But
well, no, it's okay. What I mean is it's okay that whatever, if that's what's important to you at that time of year, okay,
sure.
that's fine. Just know that if you have a working job tonight, right, and you go to that job, that if you were in my agency or any agency that enforces that rule, you're not going to be going in the building.
Right.
You can do any other task on the fire ground, but you're not
Right.
putting an
Just not
SCBA on.
going in. Right.
Right. So
Right.
if that's important to you for 3 weeks out of the year, right? Because you got to,
Sure.
look more manly in the woods because the deer definitely know the difference. Keeps your face warm. I know I'm being sarcastic, but whatever, but I get it. But that doesn't mean the rule goes away.
Right.
Okay.
The rule's there.
Right.
Right.
But this isn't a facial hair issue. So this isn't
Right,
the
yeah.
facial hair episode. So we digress. All right. Anyway, going back to
Talking about the
elections.
Okay.
Going back to elections.
Right. Back to elections. So the nice guy thing is something that needs to be discussed. Yes. The shirt off, I call it the shirt off your back argument. But because you hear it, at the station, they're like, oh, but he's great. Give you a shirt off his back. That's great.
Right.
I don't need somebody necessarily to be the guy that gives me the shirt off his back at 3 a.m.
Right.
running command, because that's what you're ultimately looking for. Like you said, you need that person. That's the end goal, right? We're a results oriented business as firemen.
Right.
The result of electing an officer is that you want to get them to the point where they can run command on a fire scene or on any scene.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So if the end result is that you want somebody to be able to run any scene, it's not, the ultimate goal is not that they would give you the shirt off their back.
Well, and yes, running a scene and all that is extremely important, but the bigger part of that is you now have the responsibility of everybody's safety in your lap as well.
Right.
Right.
That's
So
what I mean.
a nice guy, right, doesn't save you from prosecution if you kill somebody because you're an idiot. Right.
And they don't want to tell you no.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
is the nice guy going to stand up to the, the guy that's like, oh, I'm going to, show up at, in my truck and go in before anybody else gets there, before anybody's out, just, you know what I mean? Is
Right.
the nice guy going to stand up to the cowboy who doesn't know what he's doing, but
The
thinks he knows
freelancer,
what he's
yeah,
doing
the
because he's watched a
freelancer.
lot of YouTube. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you gotta have somebody that's going to be able to take the bull by the horns, and the nice guy isn't always that guy.
Right. Right.
Don't get me wrong. You don't want the jerk either. There has to be a fine line, but don't elect somebody just because they're nice.
Right.
That's the thing.
Look, we can't, that it's anybody that's plugged in, that knows what's going on in today's fire service, that has been in the fire service for, over however many years, all right, knows that this is not your grandfather's fire service anymore, right? It's not your dad's fire service anymore, right? It has changed. The volunteer service has changed. And our probationary firefighters are, at least in our state, I feel are better trained by far than they were 20 years ago coming out of firefighter one, right? Are just better trained firefighters than they were 20 years ago. So you have to, everything has to progress with that, right? You can't have probationary members coming out of their basic firemanship class with more knowledge than your lieutenants and your captains.
Right.
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 It can't work that way. Right. It can't.
Right.
So what do we do to entice education? Right.
Right.
And in order to entice education, you've got to have rules and regulations in place, or bylaws, or requirements, whatever the hell you want to call them, whatever word or whatever document you want to write them into. You got to have some sort of a baseline, right? There is no way in hell that you should be electing an officer that has zero officer or leadership training whatsoever. None.
Right.
Shouldn't be happening.
Right.
Because they're responsible. On whatever level they're at, they're responsible for somebody.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And, the other thing is too, is you've got to give them, a timeline. If they don't have it, like, okay, here's your timeline of when we want these classes accomplished, and what you're looking at, to get those classes,
Yes.
under your belt.
So
Give them something to work with, so
Yes.
that they have an idea about what that progression should look like.
Well, so if it's written in a document, and let's say your lieutenant, whatever, let's start from the lowest officer. So let's say your lieutenant obviously has to have a firefighter one certification.
Right.
Maybe they have to have auto extrication. Maybe they have to have firefighter survival, or whatever. You've got
all
a
your
baseline.
ICS,
Yeah, you
all
got a
that stuff.
baseline of classes, your ICS, and maybe they have to have fire officer one, right? Before they can even run for the position. Maybe they have to have that slate of classes. If that's in a document and people know that, right, and it's well spelled out, well, it's not something that they should be taking care of 6 months prior to the election. It's something they should be working towards, knowing, hey, my goal is to be an officer, right?
Right.
And that's really how it plays out in my agency. I mean, normally the guys, as they move up, it usually doesn't come down to, hey, I got to take this class before I can move to the next position, because usually they're planning for that next position for a few years in advance, so they've already taken what they need for the next position, right? Where it can get a little dicey, and there's a couple schools of thought on this. Where it can get a little dicey is, when it's all focused around state training, is, well, what if the course isn't offered, right?
Right.
And it's in your rules and regulations. Now, our bylaws / rules and regulations that lay all this out say that, hey, if hazmat incident command, I'll use that as an example, it's in there somewhere. I don't know what step in the system it's in, but it's in there. Okay. Not something that's offered a lot. Right.
Right.
So it's in there. It's a requirement. But if that class is not offered within our county, it cannot hold you back from that position.
Right.
So it's there. It can only hurt you if it's given and you didn't go take it. Right. But if it was never given, it can't hurt you. Now, I know agencies that if that class, whether given or not, if you don't have it and you don't go find it, fuck you, you're not moving up.
Right.
So,
Right.
And maybe that's too hardcore. Maybe that might be too hardcore, because at what point are you potentially discouraging somebody?
Well, and sometimes that's that click that's happening. because sometimes that's that circling the wagons, because you know what guys already have those classes
Right.
and what ones don't. And the ones writing those rules know that. And
Sure.
there's a little bit of a manipulation going on within the departments. And
Yeah.
when they write it like that, so there's no leeway.
Right.
Sometimes a little bit of that happens too. And you're just really shooting yourself in the foot, because it's the training, especially like we said, not all states are the same. And the training guidelines are a little bit different. And that's when we, you know, some of the things that I see, you know, posted, like some of the things that you and I see that are posted, we're like, oh my God, how does that even happen? Because
Right.
we're so used to New York State, and the training and the regulations are so different for,
Right.
you know, volunteers.
Yep.
And so when we see other stuff from other states, we're like, oh my God, that would never even, you know, hopefully happen here. But when you see stuff like that goes down and they write such strict rules into it, the way the trainings are for New York State now, the courses are really long, right? Like it's months.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Of training. So you don't want to necessarily, after your members are coming in and they're dedicating a big stretch of their time for months of training, especially when they're first getting started, you don't want to pigeonhole them into like saying, well, you can't move up because of these courses.
Right.
When it's like, oh my God, I've already done like all of this training and all of these courses. And now you're telling me like, I got to go to some training that's like 4 counties over, you know, like you got to give them a little bit of a leeway and a little bit of it. Maybe they need a little extended time, you know, to get it done, because it's not offered in this county right now, but in in 6 months, it's going to be offered in this county. Like, you know, you gotta work with people to help them succeed. If you're just going to set them up to fail, you're not going to have that retention, and you're not going to have people that want to work towards being an officer and work towards the success of your department. You want to make it desirable and help them succeed.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Look, we have to be able to, here's the one thing I have always hated, right? And I still do to this day. All right. I think I've just gotten better at dealing with it, right? Maybe personally better with dealing with it, but we are not good at open discussions and disagreements. People are not good at airing their, I don't even want to say differences, just opinions. Right. And I've said this often, probably the biggest personal growth change for me over the years was there's lots of people that don't like my opinions, and I'm 120% fine with that. Right. But I'm still going to share my opinion with you. Right. If I disagree with you, I'm going to share my opinion with you, and I'm going to listen to your opinion. Here's the difference. 10, 15 years ago, if I didn't like your opinion, I'd probably walk away and call you an asshole and grumble a bunch of other shit under my breath. Right. But now, you know, I'm just much more accepting of people's opinions and either continuing to disagree after they give it or learning from it. Right. Because you can choose to go either way. Like I might have a discussion with somebody and walk away and be like, oh, wow, I never really thought about it that way. Right. Or I might walk away still 110% feeling that my way or my opinion is the better way. Right. And when it comes down to elections and putting people up against one another, right, we're not good at those open discussions. Right. The sign up sheet will go up on the board and you think that you've got a slate of officers that are running unopposed. And all of a sudden you'll see some like names appear out of nowhere. And then you'll start hearing all that backroom firehouse chatter, you know, in this corner and that corner and this corner and that corner. Well, you know what? There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, we don't think so-and-so is doing a good job. And this is why.
Right.
But open your goddamn mouth and say it.
Right.
Or take the person aside and say, hey, listen, this is why I'm running against you. Right. Mm-hmm. It's just, there's still way too much politics in our process. Right. Not enough fact-based. hey, this guy or girl is just better suited for the job because of A, B, and C,
Right.
right? There's not enough of that and too much of the backdoor politics, whiny bullshit that just goes on in every agency or many agencies every year come this time of year.
Right. And that's a lot of that is human nature. You're not going to be able to get rid of it. But, like you made a point earlier that if you're get to the point where they're an assistant chief and they're not doing well, you can't go back to when they were a lieutenant and say, oh, we should have addressed it then.
Right.
If they're failing at being an officer when they are a first lieutenant, that's when you need to start addressing the issue. And then then the truth will reveal itself. It's either going to be one of two things. Either that person is going to say, how can I learn and get better as an officer?
Right.
Or they are going to say, F you, I already know everything. I'm not open to learning. And then you're going to have your answer.
Right.
And then you have a problem. But we need to, it does, as we say on this platform all the time, it does not matter. Nobody cares. The public does not care.
Nope.
If you're a career volunteer. You need to treat those kind of incidences as a personnel issue.
Sure.
We are employees, whether we are making money or not. OSHA doesn't care. PESH doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
You need to treat it as a personnel issue. If they are failing in their role, they are responsible for other human beings.
Correct.
So if they're not doing a good job at entry level, you cannot expect them to do a good job at a higher level. Period.
And why are they failing?
Addressed then.
Why are they failing? Right.
Right.
Are they failing because they just absolutely suck? Right. Or are they failing because as an agency and as a leadership group, we're not setting them up for success?
Correct.
Plug. Not that we go into that really in our class, but are we setting them up for success? Right. Am I, as a chief officer, helping my line officers grow into a eventual chief officer? Right. What am I doing to help them grow and get better and learn? Am I taking the time after a job, after a run, to say, hey, listen, next time we should be thinking about this, or maybe you should do this, or when you're talking to, person A, this is how you should address them versus, the way that you did, we need to be part of that problem solving as well. It's not always the person that fails.
No.
And this is, and we've talked about this before. This isn't just around election time. It isn't just in the officer group. This is just volunteers in general, right? If we're not paving the way for them to be good, good contributors to our organization, right, we're a big part of the problem.
Right. They're not going to stick around if we're not helping them. I mean, it's not, hey, welcome in, here's your t-shirt. We drill every, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, whatever it is. We'll see you then. That's not the end of it. You need to give them a pathway of information and success and tell them how to achieve what they want to achieve when they're volunteering for you, and give them information to get there. If your officers don't know how to connect with the mutual aid agencies that you respond to and how to connect with the officers at the department next door, they don't know each other, then how are they supposed to work together when they get on scene? If they don't have that information, then you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And you can't expect people to do that, so those type of things are a responsibility of the department. If you have an officer that wants to come into to that position, we talk a lot about mentorship. Pair them up with an outgoing officer, pair them up with somebody that's been an officer before in the past that can help that young officer. learn the ropes that way. If there's somebody in the department that was an officer in the past and was successful at it and did a good job, partner them up with that person. Why not?
Sure.
It makes that senior member that was an officer that served in the past feel, vital and valued still as a member of that department, and gives the young officer somebody to go to, besides who they're, currently on the line with, to have another person to pick their brain.
Yes.
Use your resources.
Yeah.
It's so mentorship is so undervalued and so underutilized.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no doubt. So people are going to ask, right? How long we've been on? All right, we've been on a while. So people are going to ask, well, what do you suggest?
Right.
Okay. What do you think we should do, or what should our agency do? All right. I absolutely think you have to have a document that lays out the requirements for every position in your line, right? If you start out as a lieutenant, it's got to start from that position, right? And it's got to work its way up, right? And there should absolutely be an educational component to those steps, in my opinion. Okay, you could tell me I'm straight freaking crazy, but in my opinion, you've got to have an educational component with every step up the ladder, right? And it has to it has to be enforced to a degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't make somebody drive 3 hours to take a class that's never ever given in your area. That's not the right pathway. All right. And if those are the classes that we're putting in there, well, why the hell are we putting them in there? Like, why are they so hard? Why are they so hard to get? Like I said, the one I mentioned that's in our listing is higher up the ranks. So you have a lot of years to get that, to get that class. But if you don't, it's not going to hurt you. But you got to have an educational piece. I do think you got to have some years of active service, right? You shouldn't be fresh off a probation 2-year person running for the lieutenant spot. You don't really even know what the hell you're doing as a firefighter yet, right? now you're gonna be leading people. And again, I guess that depends on where you're at, your agency, how many people you have. That it probably plays a big part into that.
Yeah, I think the other thing to have too is a list of the responsibilities for each position that you have in your department.
Sure.
What do the first lieutenants do? What do the second lieutenants do if you have first and second lieutenants? What do the captains do? What is their role? What are the assistant chiefs and the chiefs do? What is everybody's general role? Certainly there's some crossover, certainly you help each other out, but if if somebody's not available and somebody has to step into their role and cover for them, you need to know what everybody's responsibilities are, and their tasks, and what their expectations are for drill, what your expectations are on the scene, those kind of things. So what lieutenant is not the color of your helmet, it's what you're supposed to be doing when you get there. So having that laid out and what your responsibilities are going to be is really important. And in the volunteer world, that includes and even in career, if that includes anything related to pub ed, anything related to any community outreach events, anything related to fundraising or whatever, if you're going to be in charge of any of that stuff, that's important to know. If it's like, oh, well, second lieutenant handles that every year. Well, I didn't know that, that kind of thing. So having those tasks and responsibilities written down is important to know.
Well, and there are definitely some things that are lost in the mix that people don't traditionally think of, right? So you just hit on a couple of them. There needs to be some sort of education training in there somewhere. Now I'm not saying that everybody has to go out and become a fire service instructor 1, but maybe some, principles of instruction or, something because you are responsible for conducting drills and things like that. And there are lots of people out there that are good functional officers on an emergency scene, but you ask them to lead a drill or train a group of people and they don't even know where to start, right? They don't know how to plan, they don't know how to present, they don't know how to put it together. So you've got that piece, and then you've got the often missed, you need to be able to compose an email, write a letter, speak to people outside of the emergency scene, right? Like you just said, like, public education, or just engaging with the public.
Right.
right.
Yeah. I mean, those are things they're not, the first, any of the public people that are in it on an emergency or whatever, if the chief's not there or whatever, they're going to ask for an officer.
Sure.
They're not, you're going to have to talk. And then, if it's a pub ed thing, the, school administrators or the, whoever,
Yeah.
they're going to want to talk to the officer in charge.
Right.
You need talking to interagencies, do you know how to talk to law enforcement? Do you know who to call on the scene? Do you know, how does your dispatch work? Who's in charge of dispatch?
Because
all of those things.
These people are representing, right? These people that we're putting into these positions are representing a lot more than themselves. When they're in those positions, they are representing our entire agency, right? And they're representing the fire service as a whole, right? So, we've all seen those horrific news interviews, where somebody's clearly uncomfortable, does not want to be there, and sounds like they're clearly uncomfortable and don't want to be there. And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for them. You feel horrible for them, right? But it's embarrassing for them. It's embarrassing for the agency. We all kind of watch it and we cringe, it makes some great cringe-worthy TikTok videos, but it's embarrassing,
Right. So, I mean, those are like other skills. It's like, again, it's not a title that you're carrying. It's a weight of responsibility.
Yes.
And there are things about it that you need to know that you're going to be asked to do and have to do that you might not be thinking about. And
Yes.
I've been interviewed on other podcasts before.
What?
I'm only hosting with you. People have asked me like about, becoming a lieutenant and like, what are the things that you didn't think about? And I was like, it's like the little stuff, like when I walk in and they're like, hey, LT, we don't have any more batteries. And I'm like, why are you asking me? I'm like, oh shit, I'm in charge of that, we don't batteries. Can we go next door and try? And I'm like, oh my God, I guess so. Like, It's like all those little things that I'm like, not expecting people to ask me like, oh my God, we're out of laundry detergent. Like, oh, well, shit,
right.
I guess that's up to me, there's little things like that I didn't know the first couple days that people were going to ask me for, that I'm like, I have to like say yes or no, we can go, buy that, the chief's like, where did this bill come from? But it's just like little things like that, but that people don't think about,
Yeah.
So you have to go through and think about all those little things that can come up and give people information that, hey, somebody might ask you this.
Yeah. Absolutely. Who to ask, who to go to, who not to ask, who not to go to, right? Because we all have those people as well.
When that you want, sometimes it's less is more thing. You don't necessarily want to give all of the information that in your head out to the news media. Like there's a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Look, I think, and we could go round and round on this topic, and we didn't solve it a year from now. We're not going to solve it now. Hopefully we gave a little bit of different perspective this time than we did the last time. I know we, went into some subjects that we didn't go into the last time, but look, it starts with you as an individual, right? And that's where people have to take responsibility for themselves. Don't get sucked into we don't have anybody, we think you'd be great. and you're not convinced that you would be great, right? Don't get sucked into that rabbit hole of, hey, we need somebody to fill the position, but you aren't like, prior to anybody asking you about that, you weren't even thinking about it. It wasn't even on your radar, right? Or maybe it was on your radar, but it was on your radar for like next year or 2 years from now or what have you, because you need to spend time making yourself successful as a firefighter and then as an officer as well, right? It's a tremendous amount of work. It never ends. It never stops. You constantly have to be educating yourself, learning, talking to people, so I think step number one is you got to look in the mirror and decide that, hey, I'm ready to take this next step. Right. And once you have decided that you're going to take that next step, you've just got to accept the fact that people are counting on you. Right. You're never going to be everybody's friend. If you are everybody's friend, you're probably not doing it the right way. Right. Just enjoy the ride and, keep getting better.
Right. Worry more about being fair and worry more about being a student of the job than they're worried about being nice.
Correct.
That's my advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, and if you're used a great word, if you are fair, right, people will respect you, whether they are hearing what they want to hear or what they don't want to hear. If you're fair across the board, right, and people know what they're going to get, they know that when they come to you for something or they're looking for something or whatever it may be, that person A and person B are going to get the same response. It doesn't matter who's who, what gender they are, what family they're from, whatever, that you're fair, right? People will respect that a lot, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You'll get a lot further with that. You'll get a lot further with that than worrying about being nice.
Yes. Look, it's okay to be nice, but you just can't functionally make everybody happy 24/7, 365 and be doing the job as a leader.
Correct.
Can't do it.
No.
You're going to upset somebody. And, that's okay. All right. I think this was a good one.
It was.
Yeah. This is good. All right. It was good to, kind of dive back into this one again.
We got back to our roots.
Yeah. So what do you got going on now? Let's end on that. You are doing company training time on the weekend mornings, I see, right?
Yes, we have a good solid group doing PT on Saturday mornings with St. Florian Fitness at my home station. And that's going really well. And so I'm pretty proud of the guys. We're making some good progress and they're noticing a difference on drill night, actually, during live burns. They're noticing some increase in their bottle time. And
good.
So that's been really fun to see. I'm really happy for them, really psyched to see that. So that's been good. And getting back into my training, I had a really bad bout of pneumonia. So that was really harsh and still get a little breathless. But coming along. So just building back in. It's been frustrating because I'm very impatient, as everybody who knows me knows, but but slowly building back in, and you just gotta get in there every day and keep moving forward. That's all you can do.
Yeah. It's amazing how this whole fitness thing ties into job performance, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's really funny because I preach it all the time, and I talk about it in all of my classes, and I really try to hammer it in and say, like, you'll notice it makes a difference. It's not just how you'll increase your strength, but you'll really notice your bottle time changes, your
Yeah.
breathing changes, everything. And to have them come back and be like, oh my God, it really did, it's the proof is in the pudding. You can't, you can't
Yeah,
fake
yeah.
it.
No, absolutely
So
not.
that's not good.
Well, that's good. That's good. That's good stuff. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we go, I just want to thank Chris again for joining us and coming on. And don't forget, if you're into the whole disc golf thing, and him and I were talking beforehand, he was like, oh, he says, I don't know. You think firefighters play disc golf? I was like, dude, I don't know what firefighters do. I said, I'm sure there's some people out there listening to the show that play disc golf. I said, come on, let's, promote the product. And, especially after he made me that cool ass disc that I just gotta keep away
Yeah,
from.
that was awesome.
Keep away from the 3 dogs. But
Right.
but yeah, so check Chris out at Daddy Mac Dies, and you can use that discount code Brotherhood 20 for 20% off if you're into a custom disc. So Kara will do this again soon.
Sounds good.
It is the holiday season, so look, I'm not going to lie and tell people we're going to get back into that weekly grind. Between your schedule, through COVID and the hospital, and then being sick, and my schedule being a little nutty teaching this year, especially the second half of the year. December, January, February do look like they're going to slow down a little bit. So
Yeah.
hopefully we will be getting some more content out there, but I'm not sure if it will be the every week variety or maybe the every couple week variety, but we'll do our best.
Quality, not quantity.
You got it. All right. Thanks.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. Talk to you later.